Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. India is a curious amalgam of tradition, of reaction, of progress, of cultural change. And here you find people who think of the 22nd century and the people who think of the 14th century. And nowadays, this country is racked by two controversies basically. One, of course, we have talked very often, and that is the farmers' protest. The second is the so called love jihad, on which I talked once, in which it said that the people of one community, the young men, fraudulently flatter, cajole, persuade the girls of the other community, marry them, make them change their religion. So it's a love jihad. And some governments, provincial governments, especially of UP, Madhya Pradesh, have already enacted laws banning it. Well, there have been a lot of controversy. Even the courts are seized of the issue. Whether the laws, the ordinance, or the act is unconstitutional or not. Are they religion neutral? Are they against interfaith marriages? Now, underlying principle of any jurisprudence law, any jurisprudence act should be that it should bring clarity, not confusion. Let's take up one case. That's Uttar Pradesh, which is leading in this anti-love jihad crusade. Uttar Pradesh prohibition of the unlawful conversion of religious ordinance 2020. And this is the leading one, as I said, which aims to curb anything which is fraudulent and deceitful. Great. Why not? I mean, so why should the fraudulent activities not be stopped? Good law always provides an equal opportunity to all citizens in terms of their rights and their actions. So if it is changing of a religion by fraudulent or deceitful means, then it should be curbed. Of course, constitutionally, we have a right, and we should have a right, to adopt any religion according to our conscience. According to our conscience, there's the operative clause. Now, there's an earnest requirement to make sure that the provisions of the ordinance should be understood in the right perspective. There's a narrative going on which interprets with regard to the provisions of the ordinance. But if you look at it, nowhere does it say that if you become Muslim, the law would be operational. Even a Muslim girl becoming a Hindu, or a Hindu boy persuading a Muslim girl, cajoling her, giving her greed, or forcing her would be committing the crime. The ordinance is absolutely neutral, and the provisions are being manifested to ensure the conversion is not abetted and forced, or the facts are not deceitfully put or are dubious in intention. The ordinance is very clear. It states prohibition of conversion from one religion to another by misrepresentation, force, fraud, undue influence, coercion, allurement, or marriage. No person shall convert or attempt to convert either directly or indirectly any other person from one religion to the other, from one religion to the other. So, if you think it's against love jihad by Muslims, it's also against the power of the Hindu or the Sikh males to persuade the Muslim girls. And as such, it's religion neutral. Now, if a person reconverts to his immediate previous religion, then it's not a conversion under this ordinance. At the face of it, it does not espouse any motive to single out any religion or faith. Similarly, the provisions are very clear. They do not discourage or prohibit inter-religious marriage. No way. As a matter of fact, there's a special marriage act. If a person is not to change their religion, they can easily go and marry under the special marriage act. And there's no bar on that. But when you marry and then change the religion, or change the religion and then marry, puts into question the motive. Now, it's quite possible that the girl may be changing the religion of her own accord. In that case, nothing should be prohibited, and the boy should not be persecuted. But interfaith and intercaste marriages have a black mark in India which is undesirable and it's condemnable. As a matter of fact, legislation is a necessity to prevent only those marriages which are conducted solely for the purpose of conversion, not for love, and either for economic reasons or for proselytizing or increasing your religion. So these gullible persons, individuals who can be trapped into forceful conversions on the pretext of marriage, they need protection. They are vulnerable sections of society, uneducated. And if they're educated and take a decision, then no government has a right to object. Then that invocation, whom God has joined together, let no man separate. Moreover, to further clear any misconception even more, I talked of the Special Marriage Act, under which a man may enter an interfaith marriage without changing his or her religion. And interfaith marriages can never be prohibited by law, provided they are fair, devoid of evil intention. Precisely this is where the Uttar Pradesh prohibition of unlawful conversion comes into being. This is where the Himachal Pradesh law or the Madhya Pradesh law are effective. They safeguard basically that the leftists and the so-called liberals will not say. In fact, they are safeguarding human rights by preventing fake, fraudulent, and deceitful marriage. Marriage by itself between the two faiths is not a crime. And we have seen hundreds of marriages. Sunil Dutt married Nargis. It was a Hindu boy marrying a Muslim girl. We have seen Shah Rukh marrying a Hindu girl, Gauri. Again, it was a love marriage. Sharma Tagore marrying Pataudi. Kareena marrying Saif Ali Khan. And in the beginning, she did not change her religion, but later on, she did. Amrita Singh marrying Saif Ali Khan and never changed her religion, never. While Sharma Tagore and Kareena have changed, Amrita Singh did not. So, the ordinance would come in effect of that person who has changed the religion, and then they will inquire why. As I said, this is basically to protect the vulnerable section of society. So let's imagine the fraud takes place when the religion you change. Look at Dharmendra marrying Himachal. He changed his religion to being a Muslim solely for the purpose of marriage. Now that has to be prohibited. The whole emphasis of the proposed legislation or this ordinance is to sensitize people against the practice of the marriage, leading to conversion against the will of the person in such a situation. It is actually setting up a process. They apply to the magistrate, district magistrate, that he wants to convert his religion without force, without coercion, without influence, without any allurement. And the said converted person shall send a declaration within 1 month of conversion. And then they appear before the magistrate, establish their identity, and they are married. No, here comes the crux. Because, as I said, there are people who are allergic to the concept of interfaith marriages. The moment you declare that you're going to change the religion, the vigilance, the so self-appointed, self-anointed custodians of society come into being and tell the girl or the boy, how dare you change the religion? How dare you insult the family? How dare you insult the God? And all that pressure is built up slowly, slowly, slowly. And then, not only pressure, but the other party can be physically, mentally harassed. And we have seen even the cases being put up. So, that is where it is wrong. To give more teeth to the law in this regard, anything contained in the Code of the Criminal Procedure 1973, offences under this law are non-billable, cognizable, and triable by the Court of Just Sessions. Again, why non-billable? A murder case can get a bail. Why not an allurement? It's a deception. At the most, deception. Now, if the spirit behind this legal exercise is to protect the rights of the common citizen against forcible religious conversion, I'm all for it. But if they're lawfully converting their religion, then action should be taken against the vigilance. So, as a matter of fact, this ordinance needs a further amendment that in case any outsider tries to impact the change, threatens, persuades, or brings pressure on the person changing the religion, that person should also be held equally responsible and prosecuted under the same law. If deception and force and allurement is a crime in X case, it should also be a crime in Y case. What is sauce for the goose should be sauce for the gander as well. And let me tell you very clearly, no community is entitled to be closed minded. Religion ought to have no role in socio political economic spheres. It has only a business relating to the spiritual aspects. And then the courts frowning upon the state interference, interfaith marriages, is justified as long as they are impinging on the fundamental rights of the people. And if they do it, then they should be punished. But regulating such marriages when there is a clear evidence of allurement, of force, that must be prohibited. Once a girl has to convert, no, there's the sociological aspect, and that is suppose a girl converts. Now, Kareena Kapoor and Saif may be a different matter. Sunil Dutt and Nargis' beauty was that Nargis never converted to Hinduism. As I said, Amrita Singh, when she married Saif Ali Khan, never converted. But if a girl converts, she has to align with the religion and culture of the boy. Does this not reek of male chauvinism and patriarchy? and all the feminists all over the world are crying against it. They try to rationalize this by using ingenuous sophistry that women have minds of their own, thus they can make their own decisions. Yes, they can. But when a hold of the vigilance comes and the woman is subject to criticism, abuse, even physical torture, then of course the free will is not exercisable. In that case, those vigilants, as I said earlier, should be treated as criminals. And that is what is lacking in this ordinance. Secondly, suppose a man has the slightest expectation of conversion, does it not exhibit his discomfort for whatever reason to live with a person of another faith? Why should a man ask a woman to convert or a woman ask a man to convert? They can marry and each can carry on their own religion. This bigotry has to be stopped. Third, conversion is predicted upon all abominable nations of other religions being inferior. So when the conversion takes place because of allurement, there's a feeling in the person who's converted that his or her earlier religion was inferior. Now she is coming to a community where her religion is superior. Now I fail to understand how the liberals reconcile these sects. I firmly endorse Ambedkar and believe that to dismantle societal divide such as caste, religion, race, ethnicity, and more intercommunity marriages must take place and should be accepted. But again, the caveat would be there should be no force. But why not say that you can have an interfaith marriages without conversion? Now, what happens in Thailand? You cannot marry a Thai girl or a Thai boy and divorce for the next 5 years. People usually marry to become a citizen, what they call the paper marriage, and then divorce. No. You marry a Thai and you are married at least for 5 years. So by that time the children are there and everything is there. So here why can't we say, okay, let the interfaith marriages proceed without any compulsion by the state, but the person shall not change their religion in the next 5 years or 7 years. And in that time, if the girl or the boy really feel that they need to convert to the other religion, there should be no bar. This simple expedient can remove all the anomalies of the law being proposed. There's a clear ban on the marriage of the Muslim women to men of other faith in the scriptures, and majority of the community adheres to them. But people like Nargis, they didn't adhere to that. They married Hindu boys. Of course, Hindu girls marrying Muslim boys is much more. But if it's of love, it's of your own volition, who the hell is anybody or the government to interfere? So, though fundamentally marriage is an act of individual choice, at the macro and community level, marriage involving Muslim men and other by other communities are considered, whether they are or not, they are deemed deliberate attempt to lure and deceive women. So, what, as I said, my earlier suggestion, which was and is that let the girl retain her religion, not be forced. And the best way is to say that, okay, if you force a marriage, religion, change the religion and then marry, it's illegal. Or you can say, okay, change the religion and then marry after 1 year. So either way you have a time gap between change of religion and marriage. So marry, don't change your religion, or change your religion and don't marry for this cooling period is important. We need laws regarding conversion so that the objections by the others are the vigilance and the state are there. One person converting another is a critical act under the garb of exercising religious freedom, and that has to be stopped. So, any person wanting to marry the person out of free will, untainted by extraneous efforts, should be welcomed as a fundamental right. But conversion for any other reason, including as a precondition for or consequence marriage, must be outlawed. And there, these laws are perfectly justified. In today's era, let's be very clear that religious communities must deem it impossible to afford its women full agency to select the partner of their choice for religious compulsion. So let the women and the men have real freedom. And to protect the vulnerable sections of society, have the cooling period or ensure that there is no forcible action on either part. This would make for better understanding. And the girls and the boys will understand that, okay, if we are not going to marry for 5 years or 2 years after change of religion, or they marry and for 5 years or 7 years they are not changing the religion, the children who grow up would imbibe the qualities of both the religions, and then they can decide for themselves whether they want to be Muslim or they want to be Hindu. So what's the big noise about? It is only to protect the vulnerable sections of society. And if you can protect them this way, fine. Otherwise, have this suggestion of mine implemented and let the people go their own way, exercise their right as human beings. Thank you.